Hi, and welcome to another Team CP podcast. Tonight is a Crater Rim special, season 1, episode 1, brought to you by Team CP Media, your endurance coaching specialists. We're excited to bring you the first episode of the Crater Rim Ultra podcast for 2024. And we've got a special lineup for you. Joining us are Chris Pike from the team that organises this incredible event, and the one and only Grant Guise, Team CP coach and conqueror of the 30K Bellbird Buster, and we're looking forward to sharing his experience. He's won the event a few years back, and a keen runner, keen adventurer, and also coaching athletes now as well, which is pretty cool to share his experience. So we're going to deep dive into all three things Crater Rim Ultra, sharing valuable insights and tips into preparing you for a great event experience. So sit back, relax, get ready to lace up those trail shoes as we embark on this exciting journey together on Sunday, the 20th of October in the Port Hills, Christchurch. Looking forward to sharing some key tips and learning with you. Grant, how are you getting on there?
Yeah, good, Richard. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good, thanks. Hey, so you've actually won this event before. It's pretty cool to say that you've actually stood atop the podium. I mean, a lot of us try for that. A lot of us just try to finish the damn thing, but actually to finish and win it, that's pretty impressive. And that 30K event is it's a very cool event. It's a nice point-to-point race, and yeah, pretty cool to
Yeah,
stand on top of the podium. When was that? Can I ask that? Or
that was in 2020. So just kind
right.
of that like coming out of COVID year,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
um, that I did that. So yeah, it was really cool. I actually I had to really like go back in the archives and think, but I actually first did the 20K Crater Rim when it used to start at the St. Martin's School
Back in the
in
old days. Yep.
2009. So I did that, and I can't remember if it was my first or my second trail running race that I ever did. And I actually managed to win that, which was pretty cool. It was more of an
Cool.
out and back at the time. And then in 2010, I ran the 30K again, starting at the St. Martin's Primary School, and it was more of an out and back then as well.
You got across to
Kind of
like
ran
this
up.
Bellbird there, I think, didn't you? Is that right?
Yeah, went to the Bellbird and looped around and came back. So yeah, that was a really cool day. I ran with Marty Lukes, the legend. If
Yeah,
if you know, three-time
certainly do.
Kepler winner, like
Yep.
really strong, and finished just second, just behind him. So it was pretty cool. 10 years later to do it again and win it, which was yeah pretty surprising. And in between there, I had a pretty um yeah, a pretty rough day doing the 53K. I think the first or second year they did it, maybe,
Right,
or maybe
right.
the third year. But yeah, when you go out too hard and you haven't been training, that scenario. So yeah, started going backwards pretty quick in the 53. But yeah, it's a good event, and now it's pretty local trails. I've ran around here for years, so it's kind of fun to go and race over them.
Yeah, it's super cool, isn't it? And I think it's sometimes for various events, Cantabrians, people that live in Christchurch and they run over these trails a lot, don't give kudos to the event that these events are that are in their backyard. But it's really cool to see Christchurch and Canterbury getting behind it. Lots of people saying like this is a key event, but
Yeah.
also people traveling for this event now as well, like because it's an awesome event, isn't it? And it's rugged and it's honest, and it's all things that a trail runner, ultra runner would want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's heaps there, right? Like that you just said. I think one, like, it is kind of sometimes hard to get your head around uh going up and turning up to an event that is like on your local trails. But in a lot of ways, that's really, I mean, it's really fun because you just, I don't know, it's, I mean, yeah, it's the trails that you might train on a lot, but they're quite different when you're running them at pace and when you're running them with like loads of people and you're racing and you're in that environment, and there's aid stations, there's loads of people out on the course. Like I mean, yeah, I've ran the event 3 times. I've probably gone up that many times just to support the race and cheer on friends that are doing it. And it's such a cool vibe. Like it's totally different. Like I mean, I've never seen the Port Hills so alive with just people out on the trail. So it's really
Yep.
cool. And then as far as like traveling to it, I think I'm a big fan now of those races like fly in, taxi to an Airbnb or something close to the start, catch the bus, catch the ferry, run this epic loop, and get to see so much of the city. And then you can fly out on Sunday afternoon.
Mhm.
It's really easy logistically, so it's definitely, I think, traveling. It's a really cool race. It reminds me, I think, there's a lot of parallels between the Crater Rim and the Wu 2K, which just happened
Mm.
yesterday.
Mhm.
Flying is logistically super easy, and you get to experience a city, like these amazing urban trails, essentially, in one hit. So it works really well. And I mean, the other thing you talked on. Sorry, Richard, I'm waffling.
That's good. You're just expanding on my comment.
Yeah. There's a few things there. The other really cool thing, or that you touched on, is how technical they are, and I think like lots of people, and even like when we were living in Christchurch, I'd ran in those trails loads, and I hadn't ran for a while, a few months or 6 months, and I came back and raced the 53K, and I just got, I was like, oh my god, I forgot how hard these trails are and how
Yep.
technical they are. Especially if there's been a little bit of rain, all that volcanic rock, it's all slippery and
Yep.
yeah, it's super technical. There's a lot of people I think are really surprised, whether they're people that haven't ran here before and they're surprised how technical they are, or people that like I was saying earlier, have trained up there but they haven't raced them at they haven't
That's
ran
right.
over them at pace, in one
Yes,
sit.
and with no stops.
Yeah. But in saying that, there is some really fast stuff too. So I guess, we touch on that with training is there's the technical aspect of it, but you also got like Rapaki, which is just a gravel, road downhill. You want some good leg
Mhm.
turnover. So there's a good mix, I think.
That's
Yeah.
right. And on that, since we're talking course, we'll talk some more details with Chris shortly. But I went for a run on Saturday up the hills and across up Kennedy's Bush and across the top, out and back a little bit. I'm just going to throw this up here because I think, and I did a quick video because I think a lot of us think about the Port Hills as big, wide open, no vegetation. It's all, yes, it's volcanic and rocky and quite abrasive, but there's actually pockets of, I'll just throw this up here, of native bush, which is super cool. So trying to keep up with Steve here at the same time. Do you want to talk us through this wee section, Grant? I'll take the sound off
Yeah, I
because
mean, obviously not
all you can hear is me
100%.
huffing and puffing.
But it looks like that is on the back of, I can't remember for the life of me, the top of Kennedy's Bush, just on
Yep,
the harbour side.
that's
So
right.
yeah, I mean, we were talking about technical trails earlier. This is obviously super technical. Off the top of my head, I know back in the day when I ran the 30K, it looped around this because it is a loop around that hill.
Yep.
I can't remember whether the crater rim now runs to the harbour side or to the city side on this bit of trail. But yeah, I mean, there's loads of that, especially from that kind of Kennedy's Bush or the top of Worsley's,
Yep.
the adventure park towards Gibbies. There's lots of really cool native bush,
Yep.
really, really fun. As you go towards the pack horse, there's a little bit of farmland and forestry and stuff, and then there's normally some good gorse behind Herbert as well for you. So
Yeah, we
a
love a bit of
real
gorse
mixture.
as well. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's have a quick chat about training. So that little video was a bit of a grovel on the up. Obviously, you've talked about some fast down Rapaki when you sort of talk about league turnover and things like that as well. And obviously, there's the mud element, there's the technical element of the tree roots and the rocks and things, and then obviously you've got the up, the down, and then you've got the distance to contend with. So I mean, it's about getting our bodies in. Our body's physically capable, but also our confidence in running over that terrain as well. So let's say right at the moment, 3 to 4 months out, depending on when you're listening to this or watching this. So what should people be doing at the moment in regards to getting organized for this thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you lay all that out, it seems like there's probably a lot to organize and get around. I guess for me, the biggest thing is consistency. I think consistency in training, like laying down some sort of foundation. And it all depends where you're coming from. If you're jumping off the couch and your goal is to run, and Chris will confirm the distances and options, but say the 10K, there, because there's a bunch of distances.
Mhm.
Or whether you're you've done quite a few marathons or ultras and you've done a lot and you're aiming for the 50K, I think wherever you're coming from, I think the consistency side of it is really important. So just getting a good foundation and what that looks like is going to really vary between where you're coming from. And then just, once you got that big base, just building it up. So if you've done a lot of technical running, then you could lean towards maybe more hill work or more strength work. If you haven't done a lot of technical running, then getting out on the trails is going to be really important, and just slowly building that confidence up. I know for me, when I haven't ran on trails a lot, I actually lose a bit of that confidence, and just like, I think, maybe it's just getting old too, but like that, just that awareness, like it is a real skill. And, I was explaining this to someone years ago and they didn't really understand. I was like, oh, I haven't been running on trails much. I'm not as good at it. And it's like, well, it's like if you played the guitar, but you didn't play for a year or 2 years, like you're probably not going to pick it up and be as good as what you are if you're doing it every day.
So you've got to get your eye on a little bit, don't you, to give yourself some time to actually get into it. I like that point you made about consistency. Your body is awesome at adapting, isn't it? Like it will adapt amazingly if you did nothing and sat on the couch and didn't sleep much and you ate too much. But on the other hand, if you had some good sleep, good nutrition, and exercise on a regular basis, then your body will adapt to that as well. And over that 3 to 4 month period, like you can make some significant changes to where you're at right now. So like I went for a run today. I've spent most of the day, I was at the Minions movie with the kids, and then we cleaned the garage out, which is amazing. But it got a bit tight in terms of time. So I was like, I need to get around the block sort of thing, a couple of times around the block. And it's that thought about, you can't do today's run tomorrow. You've got to do today's run today, because your body needs to see that before you go to sleep. So then it can adapt a little bit to that, and then you can keep building on that. So it doesn't have to be much. It just needs to be something, eh?
Yeah. I mean, it's all about the consistency. I can't remember who I was talking to one of my athletes, and I mean, you'd rather, you're going to find a lot more benefit from doing, 5 smaller runs during the week than one big one, ideally you do both, right? You do 5 smaller ones and one big one. And that's what you build up to. But it's just having that consistency and building on it and building on it. And then other things, as you've got that consistency and you're hopefully getting out on the trails, obviously there's quite a bit of climbing. Either you're starting, pretty much all the races, the 30K doesn't start at sea level. It kind of starts halfway up. The Gibby's Pass, the fictionally known as the Bastard, it kind of starts halfway up from there. The others are all kind of starting pretty low, so you got a big climb. So definitely hills, technical side of it. The faster and more efficient you are, if you can translate that onto the trails, that's only going to help. So not forgetting about that. I think a lot of people, they think, oh, I'm going to go trail running, and they forget about just being efficient, with their running. So that's, I think that's really good. I know I've been guilty of that.
Do a little bit. So you're saying to do a little bit, make sure that is at least one session that you aim to go faster. So be it on the flat or some hill intervals as part of your week.
And you can combine those, the way it might look, it's going to be different for everyone depending on where they live. Like if you're living, I don't know, say close to here, like Darfield, it's pretty flat, doesn't really have any trails. Like that's going to be tricky. But, so what can you do? Well, you could go out and run some really good quality, whether it's a speed session or a tempo session, some really good quality. And maybe you've got to, make that drive, whether it's, using Darfield as an example, into Christchurch or into Oxford or somewhere, and getting on the trails, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. I wouldn't look at something like that and think, oh, well, you don't have there's no hope for you because you don't have these technical trails or these hills on your doorstep. It's not at all, like you can definitely work around those things.
Good.
So
Darfield's 10K, 10 minutes up the road. So I'm pleased you come up with that as
there's hope for you, Richard. There's hope for you, mate.
Hope. I love it that there's hope. Yeah, well, I did get on the hills yesterday, and I think like the riverbed is an option, up and down. It's really technical. And then also some laps around the block, but The treadmill on 15% is actually quite a challenge as well to sort of get on and again do some intervals up a hill
Yeah.
as an option.
I've always, I've always been fortunate. I feel like I lived reasonably close to a decent hill, whether I
Yeah, good
have
job.
to run up it once or whether I have to run up it 4 times, but where I've lived, but you hear stories about people on treadmills or using stairwells or just like
Yeah,
crazy things. And I mean, it's so impressive when you hear that, because that takes real commitment,
yeah, it does.
for sure.
What about
It's a
what
lot
about
harder than just going out the door.
yeah? One other thing that can be really useful now is strength training, like making sure that you move your body
Yeah.
in different ways as well, isn't it? Because as we start going longer, um, interested on your thoughts on this one, but basically, often when you're at the end of an event, you're hardly even puffing, but you can't run anymore because your legs have just given up, basically. So, strength on the trails is important to be able to do some time on your feet so you actually get stronger and able to move and to the point you can actually huff and puff. But also, if you do a bit of strength training, it just helps hold you together so then you can move towards the end as well and actually run to your potential. Would you agree with that? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, massively. Yeah. I would have to admit, like when I was running really seriously, I wasn't doing a whole lot of it, but I know now, like I really need it. Like I'm trying to do more and more of it. I definitely don't do as much as what I should.
It's because you're old,
I
Grant.
think, I was probably lucky because I was doing a lot of backcountry ski mountaineering, the
Yeah,
really good cross training. So I kind of got away with it a little bit and having ran, a lot in my younger years. But I think it is really important, especially if you're coming into it a little bit, later and you don't have a massive foundation, or
mhm,
maybe you're like, yeah, I want to do the 20K at Crater Rim. And it's like, okay, you got to train, maybe you have to train 5 days a week. Your body might not necessarily hold up to running 5 days a week. So it's like, cool, well, you could do a long run, an easy run, some sort of intensity, and then you could do 2 days in the gym and just really strengthen yourself up and make yourself really durable. And as your event gets closer, you might start transitioning out of those gym sessions and replacing them with, some sort of running,
yep,
as you get closer. But that is a good way to complement it, especially when you're, maybe when you are starting out, if you're a little bit newer to it or you're returning from an injury. Yeah, for sure. I think
yep,
there's definitely a lot of merit in that. And then, the other thing I think Crater Rim, it does have Rapaki in it, and anyone that's tried to run down Rapaki uh, reasonably fast or hard will know, like, the thing just shreds your quads, especially if you're doing like
yep,
53K, and that's
yep,
that's the last, like, you know 4 of the last 5K are down Rapaki. It's really hard work,
yep.
and that's going to
When
beat you
you
up. So if you can make yourself
I've got a
durable for
question.
that.
Yeah, Grant.
Yes.
So you talked about the fact that you raced the 53 and you went out far too hard. Uh,
Yep.
were there tears streaming down your face? Was your chin going as you were trying to run down Rapaki at the end of that 53K when you
Uh,
went out too
uh,
fast?
Tears. No, I keep the tears. I just cry on the inside. Yeah, no, I was
Okay.
not going fast enough that my face was crying. I was probably crying a little bit.
Yeah.
It was a rough 50K. The first 25 were amazing, I have to say,
Okay,
actually. Yeah.
okay, right.
Yeah.
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 So unfortunately, the finish line was in the wrong place. And
Yeah.
that is part of, we'll talk about this in a next podcast where we talk a bit about nutrition and race day strategy, but it's also about pacing yourself and learning to pace yourself and learning to know what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours feels like, 6 hours feels like. So you
Yeah.
know how to pace yourself through that as well. One other thing around training is around recovery as well. So there's this
Yeah.
line to say that you can't overtrain, but you can under recover. So building up your training, and actually it depends on how well you actually recover from that training. How do you figure out whether you've recovered enough?
Well, I think I've been really lucky because I'm inherently very lazy. So
Okay.
I've never overtrained. Um, like
Okay. I think
I
most of
have to
us
really
are
push my
actually. I can
yeah, I
appreciate
have
that.
to push myself to get out.
Yeah.
So I just like the overtraining thing is really like it's kind of always been like, no, I think it's great. It's like tapering. I never get taper tantrums. I'm like, no, I love not doing anything now. This is great. But no, it does. I mean, it takes a lot of self control, but I really think less is more. I think, I mean, you have to be doing something, but if your training is going well and you're training right, I think the recovery days are really easier to take. You shouldn't have any problem taking the recovery days. I think people, when their training's maybe not quite going the way they'd hoped, that's when they try to do a little bit more, and that's when they injure themselves. They get
Mm,
overuse injury or fatigue. So yeah, just and that's where scheduling a day off once a week. I always had, I think, Monday off.
mhm,
It's guaranteed there was Monday off no matter what. And that's, yeah, it's nice. I mean, I'd always feel like, oh, everyone has training, 7 days a week, and this person's trained this many days in a row, and I you take a day off, you do lose like X amount of volume, and if you tally that up over 365 days, it's kind of like if you start chasing that number, you can get a little bit caught up in it, so it can be hard.
mm.
But no, I think yeah, you just gotta really listen to your body, and get tuned in, and that can be hard when you're starting out, right?
Yep.
When you're getting into it, when you've got that goal that you're really pumped on doing. So yeah,
Yeah, so you talked about that, like scheduling is important, and that's like as a
yeah,
coach, it's really useful. I find people really appreciate the fact that it's a guilt-free rest day today. I've been told that I have to have a
yeah,
day off today, so then I need to
yeah,
have a day off, and that really helps, doesn't it?
yeah. I mean, that's, I think, the big thing with the coach is, for a lot of people, they actually know what they're going to do, or they know what they should do.
Hmm.
The coach is just there to, either give them a kick up the ass or pull them back.
Yeah,
That's how I always felt when I had a coach. It wasn't that I didn't necessarily know what I should be doing. It was more just that reassurance, and that, like, okay, now you need to push, or now you need to just chill.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel like that's been the big thing, and that helps with that consistency thing, and it helps with the recovery thing.
yeah. It's that also that side of it. A lot, like as we say, we're both probably inherently lazy, and it's a matter of getting out the door, getting started, and then deciding if you're tired. This isn't talking about your Monday, because your Monday's your rest day, but other days
Yeah,
sometimes you might not be feeling 100. So get started, get running. After 5 minutes or so, you'll know whether you're like, oh, I'm just really battling out here. Am I struggling to lift my feet? You need to turn around and go home
yeah.
on that day, or just cut it short or drop it back a bit, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think, if you've got something in the plan, then yeah, you should always get out. You should always try doing it. So yeah, definitely. And sometimes if you do go out and you just feel a bit average and you push through that workout, that's when things start snowballing with an injury, or with, some sort of fatigue issue, or yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Making it to the start line is probably one key thing around training, isn't it? To make it to the start line. Often, I think sometimes our expectations become, because we've trained and we've got this, and we've told our friends, and this is what we're going to do, that our expectations of that event actually can pull the fun out of it as well. So actually making
Yeah.
sure that your expectations are at the right level, and you're there to enjoy yourself, and just go and get started, because ultimately number one is we want to actually just make it to the start line with a smile on our face, and let's go and challenge myself and go and have a crack.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, making it to the start line. I remember I talked about Marty Lucas earlier. He always told me that was the hardest thing about Kepler, was making it to the start line,
Yeah.
because people, would always do too much, overtrain, get injured.
Hmm.
Um, so for sure, yeah, making it to that start line, and making it, to the start line, like you said, in a positive, like, I want to get after it, happy, they
Hmm.
want to be out there having fun. Because I've turned up to the start line of a 100K and just been like, man, I don't want to be here today. Like,
Yeah.
this is gonna suck. I have 10 hours of not having fun. Like, and that's not what you want to be doing on the start line of a
No.
100K race, or any race, whether
Yep.
it's 10K at Crater Rim or 50K at Crater Rim. You want to be there just like, I am pumped. I'm so happy to be here.
Yep.
And I think that's where, um, I can't remember where I heard it, but and I really, it was something I really held on to with my training, and coaching, is you're better to be, you know 90%, 20% undertrained than 2% overtrained.
Hmm.
Because 2% overtrained is an athlete that's, they're injured, they're tired, they're
Tired.
not necessarily motivated, they're burnt out.
Hmm.
But an athlete that's 20% undertrained, okay, they're maybe not at their peak, but they're probably pretty hungry. They probably don't
Yep.
have an injury, and they're
Yep.
probably pretty pumped just to go out there and have fun.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. No, that's good. What sets this what sets this event apart, the Crater Rim Ultra, compared to other trail running events you've done in the past, in your opinion?
I think well, the 53K, like, bus ride, you go through the tunnel, you jump on the ferry, and you run from, like, well, not from the harbour, sorry, but from the rugby ground there at Diamond Harbour up to the top of Mount Herbert, like the highest point on the Banks Peninsula, Port Hills. Like, that's pretty cool. And you're running all around that crater rim, and you're finishing in a town, like you're finishing the city. So that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty unique. I don't know. Chris is probably more educated or better person to answer that question, but I think that's what I really liked about it. Yeah, and or turning up as a spectator, it's always been super fun because I just see so many people that I know.
Yeah.
It's just such a good vibe. Does feel like a big kind of trail running party in the Port Hills, so that's always fun.
Good job, Grant. That's awesome. Good, excellent. Okay, well, let's speaking of Chris Pike, let's bring him on the show, shall we, and have a bit of a chat to him about the Crater Rim Ultra. Chris, how are you getting on?
Good, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good, thanks. So, and do you want to start by just introducing yourself? What's your background and what's your role with the Crater Rim Ultra?
Yeah, definitely. Let's put it this way. I ended up I'm on this podcast now because of a bet and a challenge with a few old work friends. We sort of put a challenge together to do the 10K Rapaki Rumble. And I was the only one that turned up. So prior to that, I had no running experience and no sport experience, really. So the Crater Rim Ultra was a catalyst for, my life in New Zealand, let's say. So a little bit of a story, and I sort of want to just sort of give my journey from that 10K to where being sat here on this podcast now, just to give people an idea of what sometimes you look at of being unachievable, and it becomes quite an achievable target following things what you've just talked about there with a bit of consistency and just working towards that goal. So I started with the 10K, and obviously it was a challenge, so I'd never touched on anything like that before. And with that, I sort of ended up with the Port Hills Athletic Club, and there's a lot of people there sort of took me under their wing of being quite green to run in and green to New Zealand as well. So they took me under their wing and put me on the right tracks and followed a little bit of a training plan and got up on the hills, round the tracks, just enjoyed running really. And then joined the event on in October. Stood on that start line with, like what you're saying, like excited to get going, but also nervous as hell, thinking you're in the wrong place here. This is not your place being stood here, and you got to run up that hill up there, and this is crazy. So headed up the hill. The course then was up the Mount Vernon farm track, and giving it full beans up there and then stopping for a walk and then giving it full beans again, and this lack of experience with running, and headed to the top. And I got to the top, and what an experience. Like, at the top, I was like, oh, thank God, that's 5Ks out the way. Everything else is going to be easy. But as Grant just said, it doesn't get easier. Absolutely cooked at the top. And like you say, Grant, coming down the Rapaki track, just cooking yourself further, really. Taking that pound into the knees. But across the finish line, like, you're like ecstatic with the experience of that running experience. And then later on, I got told, "Oh, you've also got a podium. You got a podium," and I was like, "Oh, right. What a day, you know!" And it was just an experience, and that's where it started. And I sort of fell in love with the event from there. And a friend I'd met at the running club tapped me on the shoulder and said, 53K next year. And I was like, no, mate, you can't be doing things like that, you know. I've only just run 10K. I can't go any further than that, not in a year. And then, as you heard, I'm easily led with it was a bit of a bet there that got me to run 10K. So I was easily led, and my name got put on the start list for the 53K. So I remember writing down a bit of a training plan, and I remember coming and sitting down with you, Richard, and
Yes.
Richard clean, that training plan, because it was a bit of a gogging style training plan. It was pretty hectic, and there was no rest days. There was nothing like that, and it was just go hard, 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 hard. So yeah, Richard tweaked that a little bit for me and gave me them, what did you call it before? The written in rest days, the sort of permission to have a day off sort of thing.
Yes, that's right.
So yeah, just worked away at that training plan, and it was, October 2019, we're still on that start line down at Diamond Harbour. Again, excited, but nervous as hell this time, this was crazy, 53 kilometers. It's a distance in a car at one time to me seemed a far away, never mind actually trying to achieve it on foot. So, and I'd met you again, Richard, after like these are early days of meeting you, and I'd met you again, and we looked at putting a bit of a race plan together. So a race day plan, what could go wrong, what could go right, what should you eat here, what should we have there, what happens if this happens, and all these sort of scenarios. And I must admit, I think that lasted about 30, 40 minutes, and that was out the window because I was just having so much fun running through the hills that it didn't matter anymore. I was running with an old school friend from back in the UK. He's also he'd moved to Christchurch and said he signed up because I signed up. And I was running through the hills having an absolute ball, running around the back of Mount Bradley, kicking Mel Aitken's heels around the back of Mount Bradley, not knowing who this lady was, but was like, no. So we're shifting through there. It wasn't until later on who found out who she was. And I think she won that day as well for the ladies. So awesome. Just running through, and then we jumped into Shane Thrower, and I was running with him for a bit, and we're just chatting away, having a laugh. Just eating them Ks away as we went. And then I got to Montgomery Spur and you're about, what are you at Montgomery Spur? You're probably about 5 Ks from finishing-ish, something like that, at the 53, 4 or 5 Ks. And coming around there, and I was like, mate, you're nearly there. This is 53 kilometers you've run, but you're nearly there. And then, like you say, Grant, with the heading down Rapaki with your legs absolutely chocked and starting to feel it. But I think just the buzz of being able to actually get across that finish line and achieve this 53 kilometer distance was taking that pain away a bit until I got about 1K from the finish, and then my stomach let go, and it felt like someone had just, I think the gels and all the things like that had just taken control. And so I was in the bushes with 1K to go, and I was like, you've got 1K to go. You're on the back of the scout den there, hidden in the bushes so no one could see you in case I did start to let a bit out. And I was just like, you've got 1K to go, mate. You've trained all year for this. Just go. If you throw up across the finish line, you throw up across the finish line. You just got to go. So that was a bit of a stumble and a rumble to the finish line. But crossing that finish line was, there was just complete disbelief that it even happened. I couldn't believe that I'd got on a bus in the morning, rode across to Littleton, got on a ferry. I'd watched them setting up the finish chute, thinking, hopefully we see this again today at some point. Jumped on a bus, got onto a ferry, rode across on a ferry to a rugby club, set off up a mountain, and then ran all the way back around the harbour to the finish line. And was like, it's epic. It's an epic race. And I sit here in this position telling everyone it's an epic race, but it is. It's you start at one side of a harbour and you finish, like Grant says, back in the city, whilst navigating your way all the way around the actual rim of the crater. So that's how I ended up getting into the crater rim. And then from then on, the Jamie Hawker, who was the race director of a few years past, he tapped me on the shoulder. I think that was in 2020, the year after, actually, 2020. He said, do you want to come and volunteer for a bit? So I ended up volunteering, and then he tapped me on again and said, do you want to join the organising crew? And I was like, yeah, I'll come and help. I don't mind helping out with a little bit here and there. And then, a couple of years later, I'm sat talking to you guys. So the involvement came from actually entering the shortest distance with Crater Rim had at the time. And now sitting here, trying to create that with a team of many other volunteers trying to create that experience for other people. So
that's pretty cool to be in your place now, coming from where you've come from, and really giving that back to others and sharing what the Creator Room Ultra is. So, and it's not a commercial event as such, is it? It's run by the athletic club. Tell us a little bit more about that structure of how it's actually organised.
Yes, as you say, it's not commercial. We're all in a volunteer capacity for the Creator Room, and this has been run by the Port Hills since 2002, under the guise of Creator Room Trail Run at the time. And having a look through some of the old results, I saw a Leighton Greer there. So there's a few names you start skipping through, and you go, a couple of guys I've run with recently, and I look back and go, I can't believe you guys were running all the way back then. It's just it just doesn't always tally up. But that ran for distances from 2002. They had distances changing each year. I think it was like 8Ks, 10Ks, 20 odd Ks, 29Ks. And like you say, that was all on the city side. So that was all on the city side of the Port Hills, and they were out and back loops to St. Martin's School. And it was in 2017 when the 53K and the 30K were introduced, with the 30K starting out at Wabel's Farm, halfway up Summit Road, and the 53 starting out at Diamond Harbour. And then, since that day, the event's just never looked back. It's just, grows and grows each year, gets more popular, more people get involved. We've dabbled with 80K events. Again, this year we've got another new event this year, which is the 6K, which is up around the Mount Vernon Valley. We've also changed the 10K to a 12K. And also, as Grant says, Rapaki is not nice to run down. So we've also removed a lot of that sort of gravel track and grass track running. And if you jump on the website and have a nosy at the courses for this year, you'll see we get you onto the trails a lot quicker. We get you onto that single track a lot quicker. And we also give you a bit more gradual running. So things are a lot more runnable for people to get in. Every now and then there's a spicy bit of vert there, but most of it is a lot more runnable than trying to run up that steep sort of farm track and then run back down Rapaki track. A lot more technical though as well. So we've got a lot more technical trail running involved. But I think that single track's going to be great for people. We're going to see people get to the top of get up to Summit Road feeling a lot fresher on the legs, not feeling as cooked, and have a lot better run across the tops as well. So and a lot less knee pain on the way down.
We won't hold you to that. I'm sure there'll be some knee pain. But one of the things that help that knee pain is the support out on course. So Creator Room Ultra is famous for that, isn't it? Your aid stations, you do very well on that, and you have some fantastic volunteers up along the Summit Road helping out. So tell us a little bit more about those and what should participants expect.
Yeah, well, should expect some of the best support going. We've got a great crew of volunteers, volunteer marshals and volunteer aid station crews that return year after year. So they're skilled. They know everything about the event, know everything about what you need when you're out there on the trail. A lot of them are old trail runners as well. So you're either just not dialed into this event for this year, or they're sporting an injury, or so in the aid stations, we have aid stations at probably about every 10 kilometers, apart from the 53, which has to do a 20K stint before they hit an aid station. But after that first 20Ks, there's an aid station every 10 kilometers afterwards. So you're pretty well supported with our aid stations. They're all managed by our charity partners. So the likes of Achilles, Speed Freaks, Live to Run, Adventurous Far Now, and there's some lively bunches. So if you come to one of them aid stations and you're feeling a bit down and the day's not going so well, you will leave that aid station feeling like $1 million. I know I have done in the past. So you come in there, they'll have a chat with you, fill you full of lollies and a bit of drink, and send you on your way they'll send you away feeling $1 million. So
that's awesome. And in terms of this event, we get all sorts of abilities, don't we? So I mean, the best thing about hills and trail running is you don't have to run it all. And actually, if you do run it all, is pretty amazing. So walking is all of a sudden allowed compared to like a marathon or a road-based event. You feel like you should be running the whole lot of it, whereas actually it's more efficient often to actually walk sections of this. So don't be shy to walk stuff. And it does mean that I think that the level can be greater for getting everybody and being involved. Would you agree with that? Thoughts on that, Chris?
Totally agree, and that's why I love trail running, because no one looks at you in a weird way when you start having a bit of a walk. And like you say, there's many places where a walk is better than a run. So yeah, I think the Crater Rim's a great event because it's open enough to, I would say, if you can walk all the ups and run all the downs, you're in for a good day at the Crater Rim, and you know you're going to come in under all our cutoff times. If you can walk the ups, run the downs, and run the flats, or at least amble along, you're gonna make it through to the finish line on the day. So
that's awesome. Good job. Anything else to wrap up, Chris? Any other shout outs from your crew, etc.?
So we want to give a bit of a shout out to La Sportiva, who are supporting the event this year, helping us push on to be even better this year.
Awesome.
Big hats off to the organising crew behind the scenes that bring you the Crater Rim Ultra. Hats off to them. Hats off to the people that have been there for year after year, bringing the Crater Rim to everyone. This just doesn't just happen overnight. There's a whole year of work behind the scenes that goes into it. And then on the day, if you're there, make sure you thank all the volunteers on the course as well, because they're giving up their day to help us all out and support the community. So yeah, big thank you to them as well.
Good job. Awesome. And thank you to you, Chris. Thank you for coming on board tonight. Thank you for doing all the hard yards that you do in the background, and all the best for the next few months of dialing things in and getting things organised for another Crater Rim Ultra. I'm sure you've got the weather sorted too, have you? Do I ask you about that yet, or is that the next podcast we ask you about that one?
No, that's still on my to-do list, but we'll get there. We'll get that booked in.
Okay. Yeah, okay, good stuff. Well done. Okay, take care, Chris. Give it a good work.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
See ya.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks.
Good job. Grant, takeaways from Chris's chat?
Well, one, I would say I do love a good race director story where the race director has done the race, and especially one where it's like, oh yeah, someone like, I got stitched up by my mates to do the 10K, like the shortest distance. Which is like, I mean, it's such a great way to start. I feel like he missed a few steps, he missed the 20K and the 30K and went straight to the 50. But I do love that. Like, I think that's a really cool story. I did actually appreciate that. That was Chris's first kind of running experience. So that's really cool. When you've got a race director like that, that has really experienced the race on that level, I think you're going to be looked after. It's going to be put on well, because he knows, like, he's been a first timer at the race. Like that's a pretty unique thing, I think, to have someone who is a race director and that was their first ever trail running race or first running race. So cool. That's really cool, because he knows the spectrum, because then he's jumped up and ran the 53K, so he knows what people are looking for in a race. So that's cool, right. and it shows too, I think. I
want to know what his mates that originally stitched him up for that are doing now, what they're doing. Did they end up doing the race, so they come back to do the 10K, or have they just bolted for the hills and they've never been seen again on
I don't know. They're either like tail between their legs, or they've just gone on to achieve greatness, or somewhere in between.
Absolutely. Good job.
But I also thought the point about I talked about earlier, like, you need to do intensity and intervals and some speed work and efficiency, but Chris did have some good points about if you go out and you're just going to walk all the uphills, especially in the 53K, and run the downs, like it is actually a great pacing strategy, I think. And if that is your strategy, then you want to have that in your training as well. So that's Yeah, I'm a big fan of a good hike myself. So yeah, I think it's definitely a good way to do it and a really good way to approach it. You know, because there's maybe like 3 or 4 people that could win the race, and they're going to run up the hill. And if you're not one of those people, then you may as well just walk and save your energy, and you're going to feel so much better in the back half of the race, sort of thing. So
And
yeah,
that's so much better, isn't it, to be running past people and saying, come on, you're almost there, you're doing well, sort of thing at the back end of
yeah,
an event, rather than that person that's oh God, there's another person past me and I just feel like I'm getting worse and
yeah,
worse here.
yeah,
As
yeah. You want to
these
be the
slim and
person
happy
saying
people.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, trying to gee others up
100%.
rather than
Yeah,
sort of just being taken down another notch. So yeah, absolutely, that
yeah.
pacing is super important.
I would say that actually it is really cool with like when I did the 53K, as you start catching the 30K people.
Yep,
And I thought, oh, it's going to be a pain, you know, it's a narrow trail and but it was actually so much fun because these people are out there just like, you know, they're out there battling, you're out there battling. Like, yeah, you're doing a different event, but it's so cool, you know, you really feed off that energy. And
yep,
then you know, or if you're doing the 30K, you might start catching people in the 20K or, you know, and it's good fun. And you know, you can encourage them, and it makes you feel better. And so it is quite fun having those races that the distances kind of overlap.
yep.
Yeah, I don't think I'd done a race like that before, so I was quite curious, you know, how it was going to be. I thought could be a bit hectic, but it was quite fun. It was a fun hectic.
Good
Yeah.
job. A fun, hectic. What a great way to sum it up. Thank you for the insights, Grant. What an awesome event. If you haven't signed up already, the job is to jump on the Crater Ultra website, check out the distances, suss out the courses, and put your name on the start list. And then, second to that, we can start figuring out how you're actually going to do this thing. But first of all, you've got to commit. You've got to tell your mates. You've got to book yourself in, and then we'll figure out sort of what the next steps are from there. But awesome event. Make sure that you're part of it in 2024. Are you going to be there, Grant?
I think I might be there supporting a couple of people in my house. There's that 6K. There's a couple of little people lining up or eyeing up that 6K. So we'll see. They tend to talk a big game. Whether they deliver or not, we'll find out.
Yeah, fantastic. Good job. No, thank you very much for your enthusiasm tonight. All the best for
Awesome.
all those getting out there, enjoying some trail running, and we'll catch you next time on our Crater Ultra podcast. Cheers, team.